In a dismal future, a blazing neon light from the past cuts a pathway toward tomorrow. Bounding into comics and Brett R. Smith present Escape from the Future.
Welcome to Escape from the Future, brought to you by Bounding Into Comics. I'm your host and comic veteran, Brett R. Smith, and joining me today is another comic veteran and a fellow color artist and comic book creator, Jay Fotos. Jay is a multi-award-winning comics veteran who's been working professionally in the comic industry for nearly 2 decades on hundreds of projects such as Spawn, Sam and Twitch, Godzilla, Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mars Attacks, 30 Days of Night, and the New York Times #1 best-selling series Lock and Key, which is now a Netflix live-action series. Jay also co-created the ongoing zombie Vietnam series 68, which we're going to talk about today. Great to see you, brother.
Hey,
Thanks
man, how are you? Thanks for having me, buddy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know,
I don't mean to cut you off, but we were just talking about having, because we're a couple old coloring war horses, you know what I mean? So we could probably do a whole show on just coloring, right?
Yeah, we should sometime. That'd be a blast. Yeah. Because I mean, honestly, it's an often overlooked part of the creative process. I mean, let's face it, the writers, the pencilers, the inkers tend to steal all of the glory, but it's not a finished page unless it's colored. And the color is ultimately, what makes you feel, which I think is probably one of the more important aspects of selling a piece of art, even if it's a cover or interior artwork, right?
Yeah, because that was a big thing when I first started working for Todd, because he had his main title Spawn. And then I jumped in when they were doing Curse of the Spawn and Spawn the Undead and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, I don't want it to look anything like this. I want it to be more darker, creepier, more omnibus, more realistic, so we were kind of beaten down. He's like, I don't ever want to see the color purple in any of these books. And that was one of his rules. He's like, dude, I don't. Right.
That's a story. So I think the first time I met you, I was friends with Mark Nichols.
Nicholas, yep.
Yeah, Mark Nicholas. His sister and my brother went to school together. She went to Xavier. He went to Brophy. And she knew I wanted to get in the comic book industry because my brother Brian had talked about me. And she's like, oh, well, my brother colors for Todd McFarlane. You should introduce your brother to my brother. So I met Mark. Mark told me to come down to the studio one day. I met Mark at his house, and the first time I ever saw Photoshop coloring was at Mark's house. I was looking over his shoulder, and he was working on like this beige G4 Mac. I mean, this is before all the new Macs had come out.
Yeah.
So, maybe a couple months later, he invited me down to the 40th Street studio.
Yeah, that's like the first one. Yeah.
Right. And it was you and Todd Broker in there. And I think a lady who was sort of like a secretary comms type person who was really sweet.
Yeah.
So we're in there and I'm watching you guys color and bullshit. And it's just the boys basically. And comes in this big long fax from Todd. And it's like all handwritten. And he's like, under no circumstances will the color pink ever exist in another Spawn book or McFarlane book. It was like he's like, I'm completely and totally banning the color pink.
That and purple, or I think it was pink and purple. We couldn't use purple,
right?
And I think he might have been like, it was a little tongue in cheeky about like, I'm setting this rule, but I mean, we just kind of laughed, going, "That's fun."
It was hilarious. Everybody was laughing about it. Nobody was like, I mean, obviously, it's kind of like, okay, we'll stay away from that. But it was it was still in a sense, just from the way he wrote it and everything. It was meant, tongue in cheek for sure.
It was cool.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I met him when I was 13 at AAA Comics on 7th Street, which isn't there anymore. This was in 1988, and he was doing Spider-Man at the time, and this was in the summer, dude. We were all standing out in line in the heat. There was no shade, triple digits. And I finally get in there and he had a big whiteboard behind him and he was teaching layouts.
Oh, really?
To a bunch of aspiring artists who had their portfolios under their shoulders. And it was unreal. And I had drawn some Spider-Man. I had I think I kind of traced some Todd Spider-Man and signed it. And he wrote on there, he's like, hey, kid, this is pretty good stuff. And he wrote on there, I swiped from Brett.
Yeah.
He's just the nicest guy, you know.
Yeah.
He was
Well,
such a real guy. Such
well,
a real
that's how
dude.
I kind of the time that I worked in his office, um, before we broke off and went freelance, is how I say, like, because I went to art school. I went to art school back in New York, but nothing for comic books or any of that kind of stuff. It's some
Right? Because I mean,
illustration.
you originally started at McFarlane as an anchor,
Well, not well.
sorta.
All right, let's set this up. So Chance Wolf, who was helping Todd with inks on Spawn, was moved out here. He came down from Washington, and then I got introduced to him via Mark Nicholas.
Mhm.
We all became really good friends. We all go out every weekend and go to the booby bars and whatever. We were young back then.
Yeah.
And then he was single guy. I was working at a sign shop, and I said, "Hey, do you mind?" You know, I was drawing every night or whatever. And then I said, "Hey, you know, why don't we hang out? I'll just bring my art table over to your house, and then after work, I'll come by. I'll be on my table, you on yours, and then kind of like, hey, I can help you out if you need any
Mm.
help with stuff." So, you know, without like taking away his job, you know, like,
Sure.
you know, so he's like, "Yeah, you could do this, you could do that." So I was learning little stuff
Mhm.
here and there. And then at that point, I was getting into the computer stuff. I saw more of a future in that
Yeah.
because that was the new thing. And that's
Mhm.
where, you know, comics were going in that
Where it was going.
direction. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
at the time you had guys who would do marker comps,
yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they would color the old school way, like I was doing at Chaos on
Yeah.
marker
Yeah.
paper.
Jason Jensen. Yeah.
Right, right. And I started out doing backgrounds and being an apprentice for Jason, kind of like you, just sort of helping out here and
Yeah.
there. I'd even go in with Sharpie and just block out blacks, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes, you know, on his pages. But those colored pages would then be given to a computer guy who knew Photoshop, who would go in and render everything. So it was this two-step process, which
Yeah.
at the time I knew was going to become one, and that was the artists are going to have to figure out how to
Yeah.
work this Photoshop
Yeah. Yeah.
program. So
Yeah. So I definitely saw the future in that. And
yeah.
then by the time there was an opening in because Chance was working freelance. He was working in his apartment now, Tukey, just a little bit stone's throw from where Todd was. And
Right,
then
right.
yeah, so we were just kind of hanging out and bullshit all night, and if I can help him, I can help him, or I kind of do my own thing. And then at the same time I had my computer at that I got,
Mhm.
and Mark was teaching me stuff here and there. And then there was an opening within the office to, you know, be a colorist, and then I jumped in on that. And
Mhm.
then from there, I always say that was my actual real schooling of
Yeah.
art, you know, because I got thrown in with the sharks, or, you know, I was either sink or swim,
Yeah.
working with the best in the business. And it was my boot camp, I call it.
Yeah.
Those 3 years of, you know, Todd, like you're saying, like coming in and talking about how he does stuff, you know,
Mhm.
and then he didn't know the technical side of anything other
Right.
than, you know, so, but then there was us, you know, doing the technical side of the stuff. So,
Yeah.
and then just getting involved in everything that he was doing in some capacity because we were right there. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that alone, I mean, was worth any schooling anywhere, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
and
man.
then I always kind of pass that along to my kids that I teach now. I teach at Phoenix College, downtown Phoenix.
Mhm.
I'm more about like, do it. You know, I can show you techniques. I can do this and do that, but then I need to see you do something, and then I can
Right.
kind of point you in the directions you kind of need to go. So,
Yeah. Because every kid's a little different.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
art, you know, especially
Yeah.
everybody has their own style, or, you know, at the beginning, we all emulate some artists that we know. You know, me going back from the 70s, it's always like, you know, Frank Frazetta or Bernie Wrightson, or, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. But then
Yeah.
you copy these guys, and,
Sure.
then you kind of branch off, and you come to your own, you
Yeah.
know, kind of thing.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
I still copy Justin Ponser. I mean, and I'm open
oh,
about
really?
that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
whenever I'm in a creative funk and I don't exactly know what to do, I'll pop open his Facebook page and I'll just scroll and
That's
scroll.
cool.
You know, I mean, that guy was just such a master. God bless his soul.
Yeah.
You know, he is missed. But him and Laura Martin are two people that, from the standpoint of comics, you know, I was talking to Brian Polito about this. So much of what Brian taught me when I was learning how to color, and what he kind of also expressed to Jason, was emulate film.
Mm.
And, you know, look at movies, look at cinematographers. He told me to go down to Scottsdale Public Library and check out books on lighting for
Yeah.
film, and secondary lighting, and and all that stuff. And he said, study filmmakers, look at Ridley Scott, look at this guy, look at that guy, look at John
Oh
Carpenter.
yeah.
You
We
know,
definitely tried to, especially with the earlier Spawn stuff.
definitely.
We definitely wanted way more cinematic, way more gritty, way more muted
It
colors.
was really saturated. I remember looking, I was watching you guys color that day, and also just from that standpoint of what Spawn and what Sam and Twitch and those books looked like at that time.
Yeah.
They were very gritty. They were very film noir.
Yeah.
Some of them were almost, just completely muted, but
Yeah.
then you'd maybe have a little splash of color. But I mean, you guys were still working warms and cools and doing a lot of traditional stuff,
Yeah.
which painters use as well. So
Oh yeah. I mean, and then I still emulate that till today. I mean, with the different styles of coloring or whatever, I'm kind of more known as that dark, gritty horror guy, right? So, which I gladly take on, and it hurts. I'm saying it hurts me, but I have a hard time doing, I want to say, traditional coloring.
Yeah.
So I just tend to stay more, like any projects that usually come my way. And, nowadays everybody kind of knows what I do, kind of thing. So they go,
Sure.
oh, that would be a good one for Jay,
Right.
hit him up, see if he would want to do that. So a lot of especially when I was working with IDW, anything that was kind of the 30 Days of Night and the horror kind of stuff, it always got thrown my way. So
I mean, that stuff also, it's like sword and sorcery, sci-fi, horror.
Yeah.
I mean, I think those can be similar palettes in a lot of ways. But I mean, I totally get it. I was thrown into the maelstrom at Hi-Fi, and I was working alongside Brian Buccellato. I've got Jason Keith. I've got, Val Staples, some heavy hitters, man. And I really had to, kind of unlearn what I had learned in art school, because I was being taught the Hi-Fi way. And, we were coloring X-Men. We were coloring, things like Thunderbolts and DC stuff, Marvel stuff. So we were doing the superhero stuff. So you had to kind of play within those palettes in that world. And that was really different than what I had done at Chaos, which seemed like a lifetime prior to that. So it was really relearning that stuff and kind of going back to poppy colors. And
I mean, that's because, like, if anybody asked me, like, oh, what would be your dream Marvel or DC? And I'm like, maybe Batman, because I can, because it has that dark, gritty stuff to it, So
you'd be good on like something like Jonah Hex, something cool. Something that's sort of horror, Western. You could totally hack that. Absolutely. So totally. So I mean, you've done a lot of things. What other roles have you stepped into outside of being a colorist over the years?
Oh boy. All right. So stemming from McFarlane, right? So I've learned a lot of, the production and marketing and design and a lot of the stuff that kind of goes into just the back, I want to say the skeleton of building a comic book or, whatever.
Right.
So that would translate to like, hey, let's do different projects or work on different projects that I'm working with just, a writer or maybe a pencil or inker, and it's just the three of us. And then it's our responsibility to come up with the logos and the coloring, the lettering, and, all the other stuff that goes along
all the art direction. Yeah.
Yeah. All the, becoming the managing editor, which is another, I want to say, cross to bear, I don't, so, but I mean, and that's,
I've been there. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what kind of works, I think, because when we were doing these Kickstarter stuff, or even as an independent comic book guy, the less guys, the more you can do, the better, because you're not paying somebody else. So that's how it worked for me, is that I kind of forced myself to go like, well, I don't need to pay that guy because I can do it myself,
Sure.
And it just turned into that.
I mean, at a certain point, and it's one of the benefits of being the colorist and being kind of on the back end.
Yeah.
You really do learn all the beats, and you watch the editors. I mean, you're sort of looped into everything, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't remember being really cognizant of what the letterer was doing, but I would certainly notice when the thing was published, and I'm sitting there, and I'm looking where he placed things so as not to step on the.
I mean, I learned all that. I mean, because I was lettering like Sam and Twitch,
right?
Coloring it. Then I switched over and then I was doing all the the setup while Tom Orgachowski was still hand lettering.
Wow.
And then he was switching into doing Illustrator lettering,
Right.
that he kind of didn't know how to set up the pages still. So I was the middle guy between him and Todd to kind of like place everything where it needed to be and to fix stuff on the fly, because we were basically doing it right before we go to print. So we didn't have the time to go, hey Tom, can you go back and fix all that? Because it was easier for me because I was right there.
Right.
So
Yeah,
and then
handy.
Yeah.
Very handy. Oh no, it's just really handy to have, guys like that who can jump in, especially with last minute changes and stuff. Because a lot of the times it's like with me, I never learned a lot of that vector based stuff. I've always been obviously a raster man. But it's helpful.
And
to have.
I mean, and it's not my gig. I mean,
Yeah.
Eventually I've worked with a bunch of different letterers down the line that I'm like, anytime a project came up, I would just have them do it.
Yeah.
And then
it's
I would
much
finish
more fun
it.
to have someone else do it.
Yeah. And they're way better and they're really good. They're way faster, way better with layout and whatever. But then, I still come in at the end, I color it all up and I move stuff around. I'll do the last minute editing, if something lettering needs to be changed or whatever, I just do it at the end as well. So I still got my hands involved with that.
Yeah, totally.
Too. But the bang out a whole book, I mean, I have my guys that will just do it and they do it really good and really fast. So it's just like, let them do it.
Yeah, that's another unsung hero of the comic book.
Oh yeah.
They're just sort of the players within the creative team are the letterers. They're huge, and lettering can make or break a book. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Just like coloring can, man. I mean, you can even have okay to decent art and have a great colorist, and man, I mean, they can just lift that stuff.
Oh
up
yeah,
and look amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you've done quite a bit of stuff. You've worn a lot of hats, and it's just great. It's amazing to hear the schooling that you got at McFarland. I mean, just being in the middle of all that stuff. I mean, it's got to be huge from the standpoint of going out and crowdfunding and doing future projects and managing that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's a blessing and an education.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I ate, slept and everything. I mean, I was sleeping on the floor there many nights,
Yeah. I mean, you can't learn that stuff in school, man. I mean, they can prepare you to learn the programs and apply the theory and all the principles and stuff. But
yeah, I mean, a lot of it was, especially in the comic book industry, when we're working with deadlines, it's just a lot of like, get your shit done, where nowadays where I'm finding, even teaching in class, it's like kind of twisting some of these kids' arms to get their stuff done, when in a month period, we can create and build a whole 22-page book start to finish.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
When these guys for a full semester, I could barely get them to do like character designs and a cover for a book and, some, whatever. So, I mean, in comparison, the amount of work that we can complete in a time frame, because we got conditioned to it. It's like we're marathon runners basically, in a sense.
Yeah.
That we could turn around stuff really, really fast. And then we don't tend to overthink things either too. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's another thing I kind of push into their heads is like, don't think about it too much. Just get it down and then we can tweak it and do whatever. And then move on to the next thing. And then what did you learn from your last project and apply it to your next one? Because a lot of these kids just have all this stuff, or even art, other artists just have shit laying there that just never finished, or never completed it, so I'm a very completist guy. I'm like, if I start it, I finish it, which goes back to, I guess my early Spawn days, because we were just cranking out so much stuff that I just knew how to get stuff done quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was the same in Hi-Fi. We were doing at one point in time, I think we were doing 10 Marvel titles and 5 to 7 DC titles, and you're juggling all that stuff. But you do have a team of guys, so it's often I would split books with Brian Buccellato and Jason Keith would work with Val Staples, or sometimes we'd rotate. But you do get into this habit of you knock it out and you move to the next one, and you knock that one out and you move to the next one, and there's always this. You're not precious about stuff. You try not to be, especially when you've got all of those titles that you're juggling. It's great practice from the standpoint of, making all that stuff sort of habitual in all the
Oh,
future
yeah.
projects that you do, right? You apply that same sort of standard because really it's like knock it out, get paid,
Yeah.
and then move on to the next project
Yeah.
because,
Which, that when we get in our later years here now, that like you and I or whoever is starting to do their own stuff, that
right.
we could take our time with it and not be rushed or, and then, getting into the Kickstarter stuff is that, you could set your own schedule,
Mhm.
Nobody's breathing down your neck. And then, you could take your time with it and
Mhm.
produce quality how you want to produce it,
Right.
rather than like, oh shit, I got to get this done,
Yeah.
kind of thing, and kind of rush it. So
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's the only thing that kind of sucks. It's a great habit to learn from the standpoint of cranking stuff out, but it's also nice to take your time and give some love to
oh yeah,
projects
yeah.
and whatnot. And I'm working on
And
something
it's way
similar
more
right now.
fun,
It is. Yeah.
I'm a collaborative guy that I like working with my guys that I work with.
Oh yeah.
And it's fun coming up with ideas or like, hey, I don't know about this. What do you think? And
Mhm.
then we can go back and forth with it. Or like, I got this idea, what can you put on top of that? What can you add to it? That's the fun part with
Yeah.
me, That's why I'm always a big advocate for like working with, like-minded artists or, whoever. And then
Oh yeah.
and I'm not the type of guy that like needs to do everything. I
Mhm.
just want to be like, I know everybody's strong points. So it's like, all right, here, you
Yeah.
do this, I'll do this. And then we kind of help each other,
Yeah.
to make a final beautiful product at the end.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's no different than I don't do my taxes because I pay somebody who loves to do that.
yeah,
I pay them to do
exactly.
it, and they do it a lot better than I do. So it's like your
Yep.
limitations, and I think part of getting a little bit older is understanding that more and more, and you can use that to your strength and say, okay, well, I've got a gap here where I don't feel as well as maybe this guy would, so I'm going to
Yep.
hire this guy, or I'm going to team up with this guy, and then we're going to be able to make something greater than what I
Yep.
could do on my own, and that's a lot of the fun that I have, and it's some of my favorite parts of creating stuff, especially crowdfunding or doing just stuff for for your own personal
Hmm.
satisfaction. You want to create something, getting out to the world is
Yeah.
having a great team, having a tight team. Everybody's on board. They believe in the
Yeah.
project, and they're really passionate about it because all that stuff transfers to the page,
Oh,
man.
totally.
I mean, you see it, and then
100%. Yeah.
that's ultimately what the customer is catching on to as well. I mean, you hope that that transfers, and I think that when you've got a great team and a great idea, it does transfer to the customer. So let's
Mhm.
talk about your Kickstarter campaign for 68, which you've launched.
Yeah.
I'm going to share
All
this.
right. So to give a little bit of a history, and I wore my vintage 68 sweatshirt here, which is like basically look like it's been through the war, with burn holes and paint splatters and stains all over it. But so back in 2005,
Mhm.
we were working on a one shot book that was going to be through another publisher that the publisher didn't, or shut down, didn't, whatever. So it was Mark Kidwell, Nat Jones, and myself and it was this one shot, which had a different name, was just sitting there.
Mhm.
And we, so at that time I was, work doing a lot of stuff with Image and Todd and all that kind of stuff. So I said, well, why don't we just put it through Image?
Mhm.
So we ended up putting the one shot through Image, and it did okay. Uh, uh, we it got a pretty good numbers, and Image did a pretty good push for it. And at that point, I picked up the Frazetta Comics line. So
Mhm.
and and at that same time I was working on Lock and Key. So I was juggling the
A lot
Frazetta,
of stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then doing the monthly Lock and Key stuff. So I had a lot of stuff on my hands, but then at the same time, like anytime we were doing conventions or whatever, everybody just kept bringing up 68. Oh, we loved it. You guys should do more on it. It's really, really cool. And the premise is, if anybody doesn't know, it's just like,
Mhm.
um, it's like we all know that in 1968, the original Night of the Living Dead came out.
Mhm.
And our story pretty much expands on that, going, well, what else was going on? Well, that movie just kind of focused on that little farmhouse in rural Pennsylvania, where our story kind of pulls the camera back and goes, all right, what else is going on? If we're using 1968 as where it all started, right? Where the
right.
original Night of the Living Dead. So we're like, okay, well, let's pull the camera back and see what else is going on. Obviously, the Vietnam War. So
Yeah.
where do you not want to be during the zombie uprise where there's a lot of dead people running around the jungle, right? So yeah, so that was a springboard. And then and it was an easy sell for anybody to go, oh yeah, totally, right? You know,
Yeah,
great
yeah, totally.
idea.
Yep.
So when the Frazetta Comics stuff ended, then at that time it was like around 2010, around there. And we're like, all right, let's jump back into 68. And then we revamped and we did 6 volumes of 68, you know, which I got here's like one volume right here. This is volume 1, but we did full 6 volumes of these books.
Yeah.
And within, you know, whatever, 6, 10, 6, 7, 8 years, whatever. And then at this point now we're collecting it all into one big massive 900 plus page slipcover, signed, all the bells and whistles omnibus book.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a box set. You know?
Oh yeah. It comes slipcase. It's going to be
beautiful.
signed by Mark, Nat Jones, myself, and Jeff Zornow. And like I said, it has all the cover gout because we were kind of famous for our covers too, for 68. And it has a huge cover gallery. It has all the behind the scenes stuff. We have all like the making and like what a cool thing that if people don't know about how we did our series was in the trades at every chapter, we mixed in a lot of real facts of the time and the era. So after we would finish a chapter and any facts that we actually used in a story, we would list it with photographs and whatnot, saying like, hey, by the way, if you didn't know, this what really happened and blah, 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 with photographs.
That's cool.
So it kind of gives you like a history lesson at the same time.
Yeah.
Even though you're being attacked by, you know, goofy zombies, you know, but so that was another allure to it that everybody really liked, is it's like, wow, it's like taking real time stuff and then, you know, making it, it's a fiction, you know, it's a fictional story, but we're adding in, you know, real facts.
It's cool.
Time. So
yeah, no, it's really creative, you know, and you know, oftentimes, you know, history is more entertaining and and crazy than you know, anything you can make up. So it's cool to insert that kind of stuff into it. Yeah. I mean, it's so this is an active campaign. You guys got 20 days to go. You guys have exceeded your goals. So you're already there.
We just passed it, I think, yesterday. 35K.
Yeah, totally. So you guys are probably hitting some, I think you got some stretch goals in here as well.
Yeah, they're all the way at the bottom if you scroll all the way down. But then there's some free stretch goals and we're doing upgrades to the book. I mean, I'm more, you know, with Kickstarter campaigns, a lot of everybody kind of does it all different, you know, that like they'll get the stickers and the prints and the bookmark and all that kind of stuff. And then like I tend to, all right, I can get into that and I will do that, but I'd rather spend a little bit more money on bringing the quality up on the product, right? So that's why like we'll go, oh, well, we're going to put a ribbon bookmark in it. We're going to add spot gloss to it. We're going to add different papers. We're going to do, you know, different things to make it like this ultimate, really like super, you know, top shelf product here.
Yeah, just, I mean, a lot of bang for your buck, a lot of quality.
Yes, that's what we're trying, you know. Even though it's a very expensive book. I mean, it's 900 plus pages. It's like 7-8 pounds.
Yeah,
this
it's
thing.
huge. Yeah, I mean, that's 30 issues. It's insane.
Yeah. And, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, man, it's really cool. But like $105 to ship to Australia. And I'm like, yeah, shit, dude, I know.
Well, that's Australia. So,
yeah, you know, I'm sorry, you know, but. You know,
you and I cannot control other people's governments' mail. I mean, Canada's almost sometimes worse.
Yeah, it's like this book is like almost, I think it's like $60, you know, which is still a lot of money.
Right.
I mean, but still, you know, the shipping is just ridiculous. So
hopefully, I mean, again, it's 900 pages. You got a hardcover matching slip.
Yeah.
You got a full cover gallery, behind the scenes, making of extras. And research news articles from Vietnam era of the late 1960s. So I mean, you're getting a lot of stuff. And it was just funny because it's like or, you're talking about extras and stuff. It's like, you've got 3 tiers here, which I think is great. It's just super simple.
Yeah.
There's basically, you can get a digital copy, you can get the real thing, or you can get the real thing. I think.
Yeah. I mean, I've
some
been like that
sketches.
kind of towards the beginning.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that I've seen that works for them. Great. Right.
Right.
But it was way too confusing because I'm like,
it can be really confusing.
and I'm like, what's the what? And then here, and then I go, what? And then ordered it, So
Right.
I made it pretty much every campaign I'm on. This is my 7th one that I just kind of keep it really simple, that there's either this, or that, and then you have your add-ons, stuff that you want to add on to it. So,
Right.
but with this one, we just kept the digital version or the regular. I wouldn't call it regular because both the all in and the book are both the same, but the all in comes with these 3D prints that each one of us does a sketch on. And so you get a little DNA from the creators.
That's cool.
With it. So
yeah,
and then you can order them. Yeah, and you can order them separately, or you can, like, oh, I just want a Nat Jones or a Mark Kidwell sketch, or I just want a Jeff Zornow sketch, or whatever. You can order them and separately if you wanted to, but if you go all in, you get all of us.
Cool.
So, and it saves you a little bit of money there too. So
nice. So will this hardcover Omnibus be available anywhere outside of the Kickstarter campaign?
And that's kind of what a lot of people are going like, oh, well, that's really expensive. And, the shipping and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, I'm just telling you right now, this is the only volume we're going to do like this.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it's really special. I mean, that's part.
Yes.
That's why it's also priced the way that it is,
Yeah. And,
so
maybe down the road, I mean, because we are in pre-production for an animated series based on this book. So obviously we can't cut our knees off, by saying this is the only book ever going to be, so eventually, if that ever happens with the TV show and whatever, and there's more interest in the book, we'll probably put out like a soft cover or something like that through Image Comics. And then Image will handle the heavy load of, working with a distributor and all that, and getting that out, getting it on the Amazon and all that kind of stuff. This is such a big project. I mean, I'm in charge of this, and it's such a massive book. I mean, we did, a couple Kickstarters ago, we did, here, I'll show you really quick here. We did, the Red Morden,
oh, wow.
slipcase book here. And this was like kind of here's the book right here. So, this was kind of my test version or my test for going through a printer in China.
Okay.
And this book was already pretty much completed, so there wasn't too much money out of pocket to produce this book. And then plus this was like my learning to deal with an overseas printer kind of thing project. And then so basically the 68 book is going to be going through the same company, and these guys did such a great job. And the quality is, even better than what I would get here or in Canada. So I was really super confident to go in and do the 68 one.
Nice.
Based on what we did with this one. So
that helps. That helps.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
You know what to expect, and you can pass that along to your.
And you're handing all this money to a foreign printer, and you're hoping you get something back that you paid for. You know what I mean? So no, these guys have been great, and it's a little bit different than working with, like, say, a US or Canadian printer. A little more streamlined and a little more easier.
Cool.
But working with overseas is a little more finagling. You really have to keep an eye on everything when you're proofing and stuff, because I want to say the guys in Canada and some of these other guys, they'll send you notes if they see something wrong. These guys, these guys won't.
Yeah.
And I guess, it's got to be, that, you're paying, it's way cheaper to do it overseas than it is, even here or in Canada. So,
I'm sure language barrier probably doesn't help either, but I mean,
you have like a liaison that kind of goes through, you're going,
but I mean, at the same time, printers are typically just cranking, man. So, I mean, they just blow and go, and they've got all this stuff lined up 4 to 6 months in advance. I mean, and it's, sometimes you can get squeezed into things, but oftentimes not, especially.
I mean, the advantage obviously is the cost difference, but the disadvantage is the wait time. It's like, just to get it, first you go through all the proofing and printing and all that kind of stuff. And it takes like, what is it? I think they say between 50 to 90 days
Okay.
of shipping time, right?
Right. Right.
And when
Comes
they
on
were
a
shipped,
comes on a boat.
comes on a boat, and
Yeah.
then
Like everything else.
yeah, like post COVID, things were still screwed up in the shipping yard. So I
Yeah.
mean, you get updates of where your stuff's at, and then
Yeah.
they go up. Your books are offshore in Long Beach, California, but they're
Mhm.
going to be there for about a week or two, just sitting there in the ocean, floating, wait to get in
Right.
to port so they can
Yeah.
unload everything.
Yeah. They're just looking for a spot. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. Totally.
yeah. So that's the downside, is you got to wait like 10 times longer. I mean, if I go through Canada within 2 weeks,
Yeah.
the book's shipping. So
Right. Right. I mean, that just goes on a truck. So,
yep.
so what do you expect, or when do you expect 68 Omnibus to print and ship once the campaign ends?
Well, right now, like now that we just hit goal, like as soon as I'm done with you, I got to, we're gonna do this. There's a signing plate that's gonna be in the book.
Nice.
So,
Very cool.
yeah. So I gotta produce that,
Yep.
sign them all, and then
Mhm.
get them to ship them up the Nat in
Yep.
Canada, then over to Mark.
That's
and-
why they're helpful. I've done the same thing on another book where I did
Yeah. Then it
Yep.
goes to Mark, and then
Yeah.
it goes to Jeff, and then it comes
That's
back
great.
to me. Then I got to ship it out to China. So
Yeah.
I'm doing that first just to get that ball rolling. And then as that ball's rolling, then we start building the book in a way,
Mhm. Yeah.
getting all the files set up and all that, and
Mhm.
getting all the spot gloss and whatever I need to do to build the slipcase and all that kind of stuff. So
Right.
that'll
Right.
be all being done by the time that kind of whips around to everybody
Mhm.
back to me. Everything should be proofed and ready to go, and then it goes to the printer, so they have it on hand when they go to print.
Right.
So they'll probably go to print within, I'm giving it like a month and a half
Mhm.
to when it makes all the rounds, everybody signing it back to me, and then shipped out to China,
Right.
and then at that same time, ready to go to print.
Mhm.
And then then you got the 50 to 90 days of, or no, I think there's a 20-day period of printing.
Okay.
And then you have the shipping, which is another 50 to 90 days. So I'm looking to have everything start delivering from here, in November.
Cool.
So
Cool. Yeah. And then are you packaging all that stuff and shipping it out, or who's
oh
doing
yeah, I
that?
do it all here.
You do?
So
Yeah.
and I'm still working on that. Well,
Yeah.
in our house, we have like kind of a section of our house that's like another garage that I'm
Mhm.
converting that into my warehouse in a way. And then
Cool.
as I get a little bit more money, I put a little bit more money into it and make it more of a shipping
Yeah.
department. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. Yeah.
And then so every time I get a little bit of money on this stuff, I I put in new lighting. I got to get
Mhm.
insulation because during the summer it's like an oven in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So, and then eventually get AC in there so I could be in there 24/7.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Shipping
then
in November, you should be in the clear.
yeah, I should be
Definitely.
okay. Yeah. So
That's cool.
yeah, so eventually I'll get it all dialed in that it's all, one big shipping department in this one room,
Yeah.
and then have all the computers all set up in there to do all that, but just
Yeah.
doing it in baby steps.
Yeah.
I'm not dumping, as working as a freelance artist, you got to work within your means,
Mhm.
you got to live within your means.
Mhm.
So as money comes in, I'll put a little bit more into it, and
Mhm.
we'll grow into it,
Right. Right.
So
Nice. So, you mentioned an upcoming animated series of 68
mhm.
coming out. Talk about that. That's really exciting.
Yeah, well, for the past just pre-COVID, right,
Mhm.
is when we signed on uh or what do you signed off your rights or whatever to
Or you
this.
sign what do you sign the license over to them basically? Is
Yeah,
that
you give them you
right,
optioned
an
it,
option,
right?
right.
So and then they were putting it all together, and then COVID hit, and then
Oh,
there's writer strikes, and then there's this, and then
so
and
it's
it's
just been
been
delayed. Yeah.
delayed for like 3 years now. But at the same time, they have been working on, they got like 2 showrunners, they got a writer, they already wrote the script, they built this big Bible thing.
Yep.
And then now that the strikes are over, and then they have it all set up right now where they have like 5 different studios that they're pitching at once, basically,
Cool.
like Warner Brothers and
Yeah.
Netflix and all that kind of stuff all at
Putting out
once.
yeah, putting out to bid. Yeah.
And then hopefully somebody will jump on.
Mhm.
But the people that we got involved,
Mhm.
and I can't say who yet. I can only say that it's developed as an adult animated series, which
Mhm.
there's a lot of blood and a lot of gore, a lot of
Yeah,
cursing, a lot of,
sure.
stuff like that. So, which is what we really edged. This needs to be. It can't be dulled down. It
Well, yeah, it
needs
needs
to
to be a
be.
faithful adaptation.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. Because I
yeah.
mean, the book is what it is. I mean, there's no
Yeah, well,
purpose
I
in
mean,
really
we
changing.
we always say it's like it's Full Metal Jacket meets Night of the Living Dead.
Mhm.
So think Full Metal Jacket, so that ain't a pretty movie, So and they got it and they get it,
Mhm.
So it's just a matter of getting a studio to get it, you know what I
Right.
mean? Which I think there's there's a market for it. There's a lot of
Absolutely.
guys. I mean, I just got done seeing was it Blue Eye Samurai?
Mhm. Yeah,
And I was like,
yeah.
have you seen that yet? I'm
I've
like,
heard really
holy,
good things about it, man.
oh,
I watch
see
a
it. It's really good.
Critical Drinker. I watch his stuff, and he recommended it, and I was just kind of like, okay.
Yeah, and that's fully adult. There's
Mhm.
nudity and cursing
Right.
and all that kind of stuff in it. So it's the same an audience
Mhm.
as what would 68 be, and how they
Sure.
did it. I'm like, oh, that's it right there.
Yeah.
So hopefully, and it's
Yeah.
just signed on for a second season. So that means people are digging it.
Nice. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when somebody walks in with 68 and go, and hey, it's an adult animated series, they can kind of look at this or look at that and go, yeah, it works.
Right.
Adult
There's a
animated
Yeah.
cartoons work,
Absolutely.
so
No, there's a yeah, it's like proof of concept. I mean,
yes.
that will work, and also it's a great mashup from the
Yeah,
standpoint
and
of
it's reverting back to, old Spawn,
right.
the animated series for
Mhm.
HBO, which
Yeah,
is
that was
adult.
awesome.
And
Yeah.
then everybody flipped their wigs over that because that was like the first, you know,
Yeah.
adult animated series that everybody
Yeah, that's
loved.
funny. It's funny you mentioned that. I remember when that debuted, and there was a lot of pushback. There was a lot of people saying, why is this so dark? Why is it so violent?
Yeah,
Why is it
yeah.
so kind of brutal? But all of us who were familiar with the comic books were just kind of like, well, why tone it down? I mean, why not
Yeah,
make
yeah,
a
yeah.
faithful adaptation? Because it's already successful. You can retain the audience that you have and then build on that
Yeah.
by
And it's
having
just
it in this new
yeah,
medium.
again, it's proof of concept that
Yeah,
it works. It's a cartoon, but it's for adults,
yeah, yeah.
It's not your Saturday morning cartoon for kids.
Well, and I mean, all of us Gen Xers, I mean, we all grew up with Saturday morning cartoons and
Yep.
then watched a lot of anime as well. We were sort of the first generation to get, I
Mhm.
think, a lot of anime all at once. I mean, it was test marketed, probably in the 50s with 60s with Astro Boy and stuff, but like
Mhm.
we got all like the gnarly anime like Akira and Dark City and I mean, Ghost in the Shell and all that
Yeah.
great stuff. And I think that I don't see it as any different, from the
Mhm.
standpoint of watching an animated adaptation of your book or live action for that
Yeah.
matter. In a lot of ways, I'm starting to prefer them do animation to live action just because I think it's an
Yeah, I mean,
easier
I would hope that
transfer.
yeah, I would hope that like because I'm trying to think of instances that something from an animated series went to live action. I mean, because doing a live action war movie is not cheap.
Right.
Ideally, we would love to do that.
Yeah, but it's expensive. Yeah.
It's super. Trying to sell that
Yeah.
it's way harder than trying to sell an animated series.
Yeah. No,
So,
absolutely. Yeah. No,
but if we
absolutely.
do it right, it can have just as good as impact. Again,
Yeah.
going back to the Blue Eye Samurai.
Mhm.
That I'm like, wow, I'm watching this. I'm like, this is 68. This is what 68 needs to be like,
Yeah. Yeah. Same audience. Yeah.
Yep. Same
Yeah.
audience, even the style, because it's not anime. It's even though it's like kind of samurai stuff,
Mhm. Mhm.
it's very traditional, a mix of like 3D animation and
Okay.
traditional.
Mhm.
But it's not anime,
Right.
that you and I know of anime,
Right. Right.
but
Yeah.
so that style I see would fit perfectly even with
Yeah.
68 stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, even God, I look at the popularity of Invincible, which I have not watched yet,
Mhm.
and obviously popular comic, but that's just blown up with the
Yep.
animated series, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and what's great about these animated adaptations is, you reach people that did not read the source material, and you
Mhm.
push them to the source material, and they
Yeah, well, I
appreciate
mean,
it.
that's
So
another
that'd be
thing
nice
that
too.
I mean, because we haven't like because once a studio or whatever is invested in it, and then that's where the lawyers come in, right? So
Right.
then I know, our stance as the creators is no matter what happens, we retain all rights to our publishing,
Mhm.
no
Yeah.
matter what happens.
Yeah.
So I mean, we might take it in the butt when it comes to, any of the TV stuff or, whatever, but
Right.
knowing that, any like what you just said, that people are going to run back to the source material.
Yeah.
And buy our books, you know,
Right.
and then at that time is when we put out, you know, whatever, any other newer volumes, or,
Yeah,
or
totally.
even start creating, you know, we even talked about it like, okay, well, if this happens, we should really do some new stuff.
I was
You
just gonna
know?
say that would be awesome.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And that's all
New
been talked
68.
about and discussed, and,
Yeah.
you know, what we're
Yeah,
going to
why
do and
not?
what we want to do. So it's just a matter of getting that interest back, you
Mhm.
know? So,
Yeah.
so the first step is, you know, let's get it collected. Let's get some
Mhm.
buzz going on with that.
Yeah.
And hopefully in the next year or this year, we have some really stronger news on like, hey, this is happening, you know,
Mhm.
with the TV show, you know, and then there's going to be another big push, you know, so then another wave we can ride. And then we can offer more stories with comic books or trade paperbacks or, you know, whatever,
Mhm.
then offer another version of of what we're doing here. But that won't
Yeah.
happen until we get more interest, you know.
Yeah, totally. Well, let's encourage everyone to check this out and
Yes, please.
and pick it up because it looks like a great package. And
Yeah, we're really excited. It's
it,
gonna
it-
be
I love box sets, whether it's music or whether it's comics like this, where you just get huge collections of work.
yeah.
And it looks like you guys have put a lot of effort
Yeah, I
into
mean, like,
packaging. It looks
just
really beautiful.
like I said, I mean, we're just making little extra efforts here. I mean, like, 'cause, like, even
Mhm.
with we were just talking about the sign-in tip the signing plates, right?
Right,
So,
right.
rather than printing it on, like, regular standard, you know, paper,
Mhm.
like, I got all these samples of, like, different parchment papers
Oh, yeah,
that,
yeah.
so it's gonna be
Yeah.
printed on, like a parchment paper.
Like a thicker stock, yeah.
Well, yeah, so it's like, you know, so it gives it a little more
Nice value, dude, you know?
that, or, you know,
Yeah.
because 68, you know,
And it makes it
1968, it gives it a little more grittier feel to it or
yeah,
whatever. But,
yeah.
you know, we're just taking these little steps of like going like, all right, well, they're taking the extra steps to make it even better, you
Mhm.
know. So yeah, doing
Cool.
that,
Yeah,
you know,
nice.
that's one example, you
Yeah,
know.
those are little details, man, that, after they're all added up,
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah,
makes
yeah.
something, that might have been average,
Yeah, and
exceptional,
then that's
you know?
kind of what we've been known for, especially with our collected books. You know, even like my other books that we've put out, like the most recent one is you know a creature. We did creature features here,
Yeah,
so you know we take a little bit of extra time and we do like the spot gloss
that's awesome.
finishes on the cover, and you know we spent, you know, I make sure the quality is the best that we can get.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, totally. Awesome. Alright, last question.
sure.
What are you watching? Any new TV shows or movies you can recommend?
Oh well, again, we were just talking about Blue Eyes Samurai.
Yeah, yeah,
I
totally.
got done with that series like about a week or so ago.
Mhm.
Let me see. I just watched. Oh, I went to Ghostbusters. I saw Ghostbusters
How was
yesterday
that?
with my wife.
Yeah, how was that?
I liked it way better than Afterlife. Have
Yeah?
you seen it yet?
No, I've seen Afterlife, I have not seen the
Okay,
new one yet.
Afterlife.
Yeah,
You
me
know,
too, me
but
too. A little formulaic, but,
yeah, but
okay.
this next one, it brings back everybody from that
Right,
one.
right.
But it's set back in New York,
Yep.
and which has, you know, got old school guys like us more nostalgic,
Sure.
and I thought it was way better than Afterlife,
Yeah,
you know.
I'm kind of excited that Walter Peck is back because
Which one's he again? Oh,
well,
he plays the mayor now.
yeah,
Yeah,
man,
yeah,
because I've always maintained that the real villain in the first Ghostbusters
yeah,
is not Gozer.
yeah,
It's not the ghost. It's the EPA guy
yeah,
who
yeah,
shut
yeah,
off the grid and let
yeah,
all the
yeah,
ghosts out. So it's like, Mr. Dickless
yeah, yeah,
essentially
yeah, yeah.
is the
So no,
problem.
he's the mayor now
That's perfect. That's
in the
perfect in
movie.
this.
So
From one bureaucrat,
yeah,
from one
there's only
bureaucratic bread to
one
another.
thing that they didn't do, and I don't want to spoil it, but I'm gonna do it anyway. But because you probably would have known if he was in the movie or not.
Okay.
Rick Moranis.
Well, they offered him a ton of cash, and apparently he was just like, "No, I'm retired. I'm done."
Yeah, I mean, really, dude. You know, it's like you can't come back and just
Like
say
one
one
scene.
stupid line or anything just to, you know. I mean, I get Sigourney Weaver, you know, whatever, you
Yeah.
know, but I
Yeah.
mean, having him because he's been out of the industry for however many years now.
Yeah.
That just to have him pop in would have been like, oh fuck yeah, you know what I mean? That would have been
completely disappeared until a couple of years ago when he got beat up on the streets in New York.
That's funny you just said that, because I was just talking to my buddy Danny, and then I'm like, hey, why not Rick? Why didn't Rick Moranis show up for this movie?
Right.
And he's like, oh well, you know, he's been retired and blah blah blah. And I said, yeah, the last time I saw him, he got punched in the face by some guy in the you know, in the subway or whatever. You know,
it's like I remember it was all over social media, and it was just like people were just like kind of like, you know, it's bad in New York, like really bad. And Rick Moranis,
oh my god,
for no reason, he just gets walloped, you know, and he's an older guy, so it's like, you know, shit.
And if he lives in New York, really, it's just like, Rick, walk down the fucking street, say a 2-word line, you know, whatever, just to be in the movie, you know. So
shit, they probably shot that in Toronto.
Even if they like bumped into him on the sidewalk, like if they're out on the street and then they're walking, they're like, oh, boom, and he turns around and he goes, oh, sorry, you know, like that. That's all I would have needed. You know,
they could have just, you know, he could be doing their taxes because he was an accountant. He was a CPA.
Yeah, because what's her name?
Dana.
Dana, yeah. So she's still like the wrangler or whatever of all them too.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was happy to see they got Annie Potts, and obviously and Ernie comes back. Everybody's back, and I was just kind of like, okay, they learned something from the first one, which was not enough the original cast and not enough nostalgia, and obviously New York is huge. But I mean, even to bring back, you know, I think his name's William Atherton, who plays Walter Peck, who's been kind of cast in that sort of dick role, and in a lot of, you know, he's great in Real Genius.
Love that movie.
Die Hard, you know, he's so great as the smarmy reporter in Die Hard. I love that guy, but I was just kind of like, you know, I think I might have to see it now since they brought him back, and he's the mayor, and it's like, that's a great dynamic. But
yeah, he was pretty good.
Yeah, it's crazy. I saw a meme the other day that said in 1984 you could watch Ghostbusters and Dune in the theater, and in 2024 you can watch Ghostbusters and Dune in the theater.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, man. It's wild. It's wild. It's a trip that all this stuff is so hip. Yeah. You know, not only from the standpoint of Hollywood, obviously, because they are recycling stuff, because there's not a whole lot of creativity left up there. But what's cool about it is that, like, the younger kids like those eras. They dig the 80s. They're interested in the 80s and the 90s, and they're kind of.
I mean, I get it. You know, even with Ghostbusters, you know, they're introducing the new.
Sure.
You know,
they've got
in
to
the
do
movie,
that.
you know, not to spoil it anymore, but in the movie, you know, the original Ghostbusters, they're all like retired,
right?
And they're just, you know, they're doing their own thing, and then they kind of get brought back,
you know?
Yeah. While, you know, they had the new Ghostbusters running it,
right?
You know, but then when shit hits the fan, I guess you got to bring everybody back, you know, kind of thing. But
yeah, totally. Yeah. You know, I love Paul Rudd. I mean, he's fantastic. He's
anything he does, he's
guy's awesome. Yeah, you know, we've been watching the Gentleman on Netflix, and I highly recommend it. It's really
who's in that? Or
well, it's Guy Ritchie. It's based on the movie, but it's a series. It's sort of a story that's adjacent to the movie. The movie's really good. But it's I won't give it away, but it doesn't have any really recognizable faces. It's all talent. They're all really good actors and actresses, and we're only 3 episodes in, but it's nuts, man. I mean, it's crazy. And you know, if you like Lock, Stock and you like Snatch and some of those earlier Guy Ritchie movies, this kind of taps into that in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So he's the guy's on a roll. I mean, he's got this new one coming out with was the League of Ungentlemanly Warfare or something with Henry Cavill and a bunch of other people. It looks very cool.
Cool. So, I'll have to check it out for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Guy still makes movies for dudes. Not many people do that these days, so it's fun to go and see. So, all right. Well, sadly, we're out of time. Jay, what's the best way our viewers can support you?
Let me see. So, obviously, Brett, are you gonna put up some kind of link to go directly?
Absolutely. We'll put up a link to the 68 Ultimate Omnibus.
Yeah, so we got another 20 days to go in this. So I'm not sure when you're going to be airing this, but
this will go up on Thursday. So
okay,
plenty of time.
And so you go directly right to the 68 Omnibus to back that, or you know, you can follow me on the socials like Facebook. There's Jay Fotos Studios. For Instagram, same thing at Jay Fotos Studios, and then we have a 68 Zombie page on Facebook as well.
Nice. We'll link to all that stuff.
Yes, please.
Cool.
And my website, you know, is just jfotos.com.
Nice. All right. For more videos like this one, subscribe to Bounding Into Comics channel on YouTube and Rumble. Also, make sure to like this video and leave us a comment. Leave us a comment if you are fans of the 68. If you've read the series, if you're going to pick up the omnibus, make sure and leave a comment. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you
Thanks,
next
guys.
time. Thanks,
see you
brother.
soon. Thanks, Brett.